Welcome to the show. This is whose show is it, anyways? My name is John Flegel, Flegs at JJ Flegel on the Twitter, and I've got with me my buddy from the internet, the Vanilla Gorilla, Tanner Johnson. Welcome, Tanner.
Hey, what's up, Flegs?
Hey, not much. So this show, again, whose show is it, anyways? It's a little bit of a random selection as to who is hosting the show. That's why we don't really know whose show it is. And at the end of this show, we will be announcing who will be hosting next week's show along with their topic. But this week on whose show, we've got myself and Tanner, and our topic, as randomly chosen, is women's sports. So it's an interesting topic. It's broad. There's a lot of information. It can go a lot of ways. Who knows where it's going, how it's going, but I don't know. When I thought of women's sports, I kind of think of the history of women's sports, and you think of the Olympics back in the days. There's like the original ancient Olympics, and that was exclusive to guys.
Yeah,
but
for hundreds of years.
Yeah, but apparently that there was a Hurrian Games based on the goddess Hera. I don't know if you know this, Tanner. Have you heard of this before?
I know who Hera is.
Yeah, so the goddess Hera, they had basically foot races. It's where young girls competed in foot races back in ancient Greece. So it was held every 4 years, just like the Olympics. Probably took time around the same time, but it was just kind of the women's version. And that is the earliest I could find in about 12 minutes of research of women's sports. Have you ever heard of that? Anything at all, Tanner?
Never heard of Hurrian Games.
Yep.
I too did about 12 minutes of research. And that is not to discredit the importance of women's sports. That Correct. Is to credit the amount of work I had to do today and the short notice you get when you're doing this show. So women's sports, very important. Just want to clarify. Can I just say something before we dive deep into this?
Yeah.
We got women's sports as a topic, and we're still going to have a way better episode than our first episode last week with Marco and Trashman Ronnie. They got music. What a fucking softball of a topic. Those two did zero research, I guarantee it. And if Tone's listening in, he can confirm that.
Completely.
I didn't look up like way ancient women's sports, but the history of the world says that men, they got to do all the sport related stuff for a long time. And if you look even in the this century, the last 2 centuries, I guess, women didn't get to join the Olympics, I think, until 1908, 1904, something like that.
I got on my notes 1900. So the first modern Olympics games was in 1896. That was held in Greece in honor of the ancient ones. And then apparently, so the first women was in 1900. And there's only about, I think, 18 or 20 women that participated in that first one. And I think it was just kind of a random selection. But I will give credit fairly early in the formation of the Olympics. They're like, you know what? Women deserve a role here too. Did they say they deserve an equal role? I don't know about that, but they saw there was.
You do know about that because it was 1.3% of all participants were female in 1908, and Flegs by 1948 that number had 10x'd to 10%.
Nice.
By 1948, man. Like half the world was at war. The men were not literally able to do the Olympics. And they still only could muscle up 10% of women numbers. And we're laughing because we know it's wrong. But
correct, yes.
1984, the Los Angeles Games, Flex. Can you tell me how many or what percentage of women participants there were?
84. I would say I'm gonna go high. I'm gonna say, is that the first one to break 40%?
No, it's not. 23%.
23.
Still
okay.
Abysmal.
Ugh, yikes.
Yep, not good. Looking at in 2020, Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I just can't read my own writing. 2016 was 47%.
2016. So just
So
4 years ago.
now we're getting pretty even. I think there are some men's sports that qualify more participants based off of sheer number of athletes. Like, for example, if the speed skating pool is 8,000 men and only 2,000 women, that may slew numbers. I don't know that to be true, but that would explain the difference there, I believe.
Yeah. You know what? The one thing I will say is I'm glad we're making progress in having equal representation, because not only is it, number one, the right thing to do, but I also have a vested interest. I have two little girls, and I want them to have every single
Yeah.
opportunity that I had growing up. And I wouldn't, in small town southern Indiana, there's only so many options. We didn't even have a football team, but you
Oh
know,
shit.
we also had a golf team, and there wasn't a women's golf team, but we had a girl who was very into golf, and so she just played on the guys squad. She did the sectionals and stuff in the fall when the girls golf team played, and then but for
Oh,
competitions, she was just on the guys team.
did she
So
have to drive from the men's tee box?
I wasn't on the golf team. I don't know. I've got some buddies who could tell you in a lot of clarity as to what that was. I believe she did, because she had to play by the same rules, right? If she
Right.
was on, I think when she played in the fall for sectionals and stuff, she played from the girls' tees. But I think
Probably got a lot better for that.
I can only assume so. Yeah. Actually, she was my prom date junior year, because I didn't ever ask anybody, and I was a loser, and she was still available. And there's not a whole lot of options. And when half your class is paired up already because they're all boyfriends and girlfriends, and the other half, they're not really interested, that's why they're not paired off. You just pick a friend and you go, and had a pretty good time.
I've been there. I've been that guy.
Yep.
So,
So go ahead.
well, just to wrap up the Olympics discussion, were you aware that Olympic athletes make shite for money for being an Olympian?
American ones do,
I
yes.
assumed, yeah, Americans. I assumed that if you were an Olympic athlete, you were getting paid. I don't know if I assumed millions, but $500,000. Now I understand you get access to some of the greatest training in the world and all that. That doesn't go without saying. But
There's value. Yeah.
dude, there's Olympic athletes who went bankrupt after the Olympics because they participated in the Olympics. Terrible. I thought for sure that was a very luxurious lifestyle to live, but it really didn't seem that great.
Well, I think the key there is, how good are you? Like, if you can pull out a gold post Olympics, you're going to make money on sponsorships and Wheaties, whatever. Even in some of the smaller sports, like the cross country shooting, whatever, the biathlon, like some of those people, if you can pull out a gold medal, you're going to make sponsorship deals. But if you don't place, or you're a bronze or silver and you underperform, I think that's where the issue is. But yeah, absolutely, people leverage their livelihood just to have that opportunity, which, mad respect, but it's a risk financially. But I'm sure these people have lived that goal their entire life as well. So
yeah.
So that being said, are there any sports? So like in current era today, there's the guys sports and the girls sports. Are there any sports that you would say on a media scale, certainly not a pay scale, but on a like viewership scale, are there any sports of women's version that is probably equal or greater to than like the guys version? I've got one in particular that pops in my mind.
In terms of eyeballs, you're saying, like,
Yeah, it just gets
comparable
the same amount
viewership,
of same amount of media attention, same amount of time on ESPN, same amount of time on your local coverage, whatever.
Mhm.
would you say there's any right now that gets the
Hmm.
same amount of coverage or greater than?
So this is all from my perspective, right? So
Yeah.
I don't have any stats to back this up, but it seems like I see as much women's tennis on ESPN as I do men's, and
That
then around whatever, yeah, like Olympics, but for soccer, whatever they call that.
the World Cup.
Yeah, around World Cup time, I'd argue maybe the women get a little more shine than the men, and that's purely because the women are really fucking good and the men really blow.
Yeah, completely agree. Tennis was what popped in my mind too. So I think tennis has probably been the one to break the most barriers. I think they've been breaking barriers earlier. I think they started much earlier in breaking those barriers. Go
I'd
back to like,
agree.
and so I think that's what one way that brings them to today, where they have probably, if not equal, as close to equal coverage and eyes as anybody else. And it helps when you have like Serena Williams dominating and just,
Yeah. Well, go back a little longer. What's her name?
Billie Jean King,
Okay, yeah, she's Martina Navratilova.
Navratilova. Yeah.
I mean, growing up, yeah, I
Monster.
mean, you heard about her all the time. She fucking dominated.
Yeah.
Billie Jean King. Now, remind me. I know the name. I don't know anything about Billie Jean King though.
So she's probably most famous for, like, she dominated back in late 60s, and I think the 70s is when she was biggest. And God, it's kind of painful to say this, but she's probably most well known for challenging a guy. She's like, I'll challenge any guy in the top 100 to play. And I think
Mhm.
only one person accepted that challenge, is like some guy number 98. And, he beat her pretty handily from what I understand. But the fact that she's willing to put herself out there and be a vocal supporter of equality and
Yeah.
so that I think that's kind of, she
Like,
was a big part of that equality movement.
I
With
just
it.
Googled Billie Jean King. Hand up. Didn't know she was that old.
Yeah.
Second thing, she was married to Larry King for 22 years.
Oh shit.
That's noteworthy.
Yeah. Larry King's
It's
been married to a
noteworthy
lot
that
of
she
people.
I was gonna say it's noteworthy that she was one of like the 20, but
Right. But locked him down for 22
with,
years. That's a
with
lot.
the
Yeah.
King. I mean,
That's wild.
I didn't know that.
So
So she was like the real deal back in the day, though. I mean, she was like the Serena Williams of the 60s and 70s, is what you're saying?
is essentially, yeah. She was like the face of women's tennis back then. There was I don't know her record. I don't know how dominant she was from a win-loss perspective, but she was certainly
Sure.
the face of tennis back then.
Yeah, I hear you. What I did when in my 12 minutes of research, this might become a theme. Maybe we'll cap minutes of research 12 going forward. We'll have to talk about that with the showrunners. But I typed in highest earning women or female professional athletes on the Google. You cannot find a list of like highest salaries. It always is like net worth. And I really don't care about someone's ability to get ad deals. I just assume that if you are popular, you have ad deals and sponsorship money. I want to know salary because that's a very relevant and touchy subject for a lot of people, right? Or it should be for most people. But obviously the inequality in pay, it widens drastically between men and women in sports. And I couldn't even find the information. So it's like the war is waging, but you don't even know where to find ammo. Yeah. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, the transparency thing is key, right?
If I was, and I don't advocate for social justice popularly or like in my my social life. But I am rooting for it and will help when I can. Right. If I was on that team and I was like on the front runner, I'd make that the first thing that pops up when you search that stuff for Google. Wouldn't that make sense?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'll play not a devil's advocate because I think you and I probably agree on that. The pay gap is massive, but there's a lot that goes into that. I think we can all agree. The marketing deals being one of them, and the length of seasons and contracts like that. So, like, just take. I'm watching basketball right now. I think college basketball is one of those sports where I think that's closing the gap in the marketability of women's versus men's. But I think when it comes to pro ball, I mean, that gap is massive. And, they have a quarter of the teams roughly, they have a quarter of the season. So, the other side of the argument being, well, they don't do as much, they don't bring in as much revenue, there's not as much attendance, this and that. And, the important thing to me is normalizing all that stuff. We shouldn't have to be having our athletes in the NBA and I guess more so in the WNBA, taking their off seasons and going and playing overseas and making 5 times the amount of money that they make here in the States. Like,
True.
They'll get the visibility here in the States, but they get paid overseas, and they shouldn't have to do that. Like, why is there such a big gap there, and why is it growing there, not here? And in my limited knowledge, I don't have the answers, right? I don't think either of us have the answers, but I think there's a huge opportunity for growth to close those gaps and to make it, more equal, bring on the equality.
In full disclosure, I got the privilege to be a guest on Off the Rails with Tone and Gems, and we did talk about this. And I kind of view Tone as like my WNBA guy because he's been a fan for a long time, and he's raising his daughters to love the sport as well. I'd be all about the WNBA, but none of my friends talk about the WNBA. It's not in my circle. So now I got Tone in my life, and I'm already starting to gravitate towards it. So is that how we could change the way it's viewed? Is you and me and Trash Man and Tone and Gems and whomever, we just start talking about it more. I could talk about the WNBA. I can watch basketball, pay attention, pick out players I like and dislike, and what. I mean, I could do that. Fuck, I did it for the XFL. I can do it for the WNBA. Yeah. Is that something we could do? When I say we, but like, is that something as a society or culture we could just do? Is it that easy, Flegs, or am I oversimplifying a pretty big issue?
I think that's the biggest first step, right? Like, so I've got 2 daughters myself, and my 7-year-old is playing her first year of, little bitty basketball or whatever. And, but she watched her niece for the previous couple years, and she was super excited. And here in Indiana, basketball kind of rules everything. And I was really excited for the Fever to play because Indianapolis was set to host the NBA All-Star Game. And are they even calling it just the NBA, or are they just calling it the All-Star Game? Because I know they incorporate the WNBA into that too that weekend,
like
right?
All-Star Weekend, I think is what.
I think it's just
what they call it.
Yeah. And so, anyways, but they're remodeling the Pacers facility. So they were going to play out of Butler's facility, which is Hinkle Fieldhouse. It's a historic landmark,
I've been there.
Huge in basketball, especially in Indiana. If you've ever watched Hoosiers, you've seen Hinkle Fieldhouse. And so I was like, sweet, season tickets, whatever, pandemic hits, screws all that up, whatever. But I was super excited as a dad. And I think this is another thing you can do. Like, I'd be happy to take my kids to go see a Pacers game, but I should be just as excited to take them to a Fever game, because it's not always about what I want to see, because they may not be able to see themselves with the Pacers on the court, but they could certainly do that with the Fever on the court. And so,
True.
If you're a parent and you see your kids passionate about things and loving the game, and you can teach them the game, well, give them an opportunity to see a little bit of themselves on the floor too.
I like it. Um, do you have a favorite women's sports moment? And it doesn't have to be professional or college. It could be high school. It could be as a dad. Anything.
Yeah. Um, Gosh, bringing
It's
in the
okay
dad
if
thing.
the answer is no, because I feel like a lot of us haven't been exposed to as much women's sports.
Well, there's two moments that pop in my mind, and we were kind of talking about this pre-show. I think the now I don't even know if it's World Cup or Olympics. I think it was the Olympics for the gold medal when Brandy Chastain hit the final
Oh
goal,
yeah,
ripped off her shirt, and goes sliding down
yeah,
the like that's like just a favorite like classic moment.
it was
But
iconic.
yeah, me personally, and I saw that live. I'm not Trash Man Ronnie, who's just a child. He was barely born at that time, I believe. But as a dad too, my daughter, we won our championship in our little league game, and being a coach on that team and watching her grow and that kind of stuff, like man, that's fun. That's fun, just helping your kid and
Hmm.
seeing the progress and seeing the growth and seeing things click and seeing my other little daughter who's only 4. She's not old enough to play, but she could probably play with my sister's league any day. Um, Seeing the excitement of winning a championship game and getting a ring at the end and stuff, like those kind of heartfelt moments are definitely going to live with me for, well, my life.
Yeah, of
How
course.
about you?
I don't have doesn't it's not like powerful in my head, but I was young. I was 4 or 5. But my cousin Jessica was a senior for the high school basketball team. High school I would end up going to and stuff. And I don't think Bangor had ever won a state championship for a team sport ever to that point. And I remember going to the games, especially the playoff games, and like they won by like I don't know 60 points a game. The first few, and then it was like overtime, win, buzzer beater.
Ugh.
Get to sectional finals, overtime. I don't know if it was a buzzer beater, but overtime win. We're going to state. Holy crap! Bangor's never gone to state. They went down to the region or the first 2 games. I think they won those 2 state games, Flegs, by like a combined 70 points. They
Jeez.
bitch slapped these other teams. I mean, that was like domination. These girls looked like the goddamn Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And getting to see my cousin win that state championship, that was awesome. I mean, when they came home, and I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but in little town Wisconsin, this happens. If you win state and you come back, the little fire department, they'll greet you at the
Go
interstate
around the
exit
town
and
square. Yep.
lights and I mean that was awesome. I remember being like 4 or 5, whatever I was, and I remember that vividly. Um, I remember the celebration more than the games, and I probably can supplementally remember the game just because I've been able to look at the scores 100 times on the wall. But yeah, that was really cool. If it's a professional moment or something like that, watching what the hell was her name from Notre Dame? Erica Ogumbawale from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Watching her like during that run when I think they ended up winning the championship. See, I don't even remember, but she dominated that year. And I believe she ended up getting drafted first or second overall. But watching her, she looked like I guess man amongst boys is the same we'd say, but a woman amongst girls. I mean,
Right.
she dominated. That was insane. I mean, you knew she was going to be a pro, and I remember watching a few of those games, thinking like, Jesus,
Yeah.
this lady can ball.
Well, and one thing for me looking forward, some of my favorite moments here locally, last year, the girls' state championships, there's 3 girls in the state of Indiana who are all ranked in like the top 20 nationwide. Sydney
Hmm.
Parrish went to Hamilton Southeastern High School, which I live in Hamilton County. That's actually the school my wife went to when she grew up, just down the road. And she was like the number 3 prospect nationwide. She's out playing in Oregon right now. And
Awesome.
so I was able to take my daughter to go see her at her very first live basketball game outside of, like, the little kids leagues. And she got to see Sydney Parrish play in that sectional game. And then these other two girls, one ended up going to Purdue and one ended up going to Michigan State. They were both on the same team from up in Kokomo, Indiana. And so we went to the state championships to go watch them as well. So not only, like, I'm kind of setting it up for my daughter to be able to follow these girls throughout, hopefully not
Yeah.
just their college careers, but also potentially a professional career as well. So
Oh,
that's
awesome.
kind of what I'm trying to do personally with my daughters, because I enjoyed doing that myself growing up, and I want to be able to have them be able to see and meet and hang out with these girls early. And it's just a lot of fun.
I think through the power of social media, and I did say this when I was out and off the rails, but if I was a WNBA team, if I'm a professional sports team, women's sports team, right, like the NWHL is getting some shine right now from Barstool, and you're hearing more and more about it, which is good. I would be the most obnoxious, like, not maybe obnoxious, I'd be the most present social media force in sports today. You
Yeah.
have a mountain to climb. It's not fair, but it's reality, unfortunately. You have a mountain to climb. Get your damn name out there. If everyone hasn't passively read, even scroll over when the freaking WNBA season starts or when the hockey leagues start, whatever it is, you're doing something wrong. That needs to be everywhere. And people like us who, again, I think we can become fans of this stuff pretty easily. We just like sports.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm really drawn to the masculine physicality or whatever of the NBA. I could probably get right on board watching the WNBA. Again, it's not social to me because no one else is doing it. But social media, I mean, I just look at what the Smoking Pot Moms have done. They don't even have a podcast episode out yet, and they got almost 1,000 Instagram followers.
Yeah.
Well, if these girls are posting videos of their workout highlights and stuff like that, that's really cool and interesting because anyone can better their game by watching other good players. I think they could grow social media lightning quick. So I that's my challenge to anybody in women's sports, amateur, college, professional, whatever, is build your social media and be present, be everywhere.
And as an example, so going back to Sydney Parrish, she went out to Oregon. Go down that Oregon girls basketball team and check out their TikTok following. Every
Yes.
single one of them have 40,000 plus followers. And all they're doing is giving a glimpse behind the scenes, right? And they're a dominant basketball team, right? They're a top 5 team and will be for the foreseeable future. And go check it, see what they're doing. It's not that hard. Go interview your teammates. Go talk about what your apartment is like. People like seeing that. The one thing I think that plays well to guys in sports is, and you see this a lot in golf, is when you see professional golfers have like that human moment and they just cannot, that this course just does not agree with Tiger or does not agree with Phil or does not agree with somebody, right? Like you see that human element, but you have, with social media, you can get that behind the scenes, and that would be something to look into. Do some homework. What are people doing that's successful? Look at, in really all of Oregon sports. I think I feel like once you sign on to go to Oregon, they send a social media manager out and teach you a little bit because
they're a present. Yeah, they're everywhere. And Sabrina Ionescu, I think I got that right. Tone taught me her name. I knew of her, but she was Wonder Woman. I mean, after Tone and Gems were talking about her, I went and looked up some highlights and just ran down her social media and shit. Like, dude, and I think she went to New York in the draft. I could be wrong, but I think she went to a big market team. And mean, she's going to be incredible.
Yeah. Well, and she grew up like under Kobe and the Mamba stuff, right? I think that's kind of where her presence initially started was, from Kobe and the what are the basketball leagues? The AAU leagues. And
Yeah.
she kind of grew up with that Mamba mentality. And then through Oregon, she was like a little sister to Kobe, which is phenomenal. Like, what better
For a
person
guy to
could
be
you
a little
do?
sister to.
Yeah. So I think I got maybe a couple other things that I
Yeah,
wanted
we're
to
getting
touch
right around
on.
a half hour.
Yeah. So just a couple other things I wanted to touch on. Coaching in sports. When you hear of coaches in women's sports, two names pop in my head immediately. Is there anybody that pops in your mind in particular?
A woman coaching sports or
Just
people coaching women's
people
sports?
people coaching women's sports.
Gino
Gino Auriemma.
Ariama. Oh, I'm gonna do such a disservice to her name. She coaches Tennessee, and yep. And did she pass away? I know she had Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yep.
Super sad, but so inspiring. Let's see here. I don't know if I can name any more coaches, to be honest with you.
No, those two were all that was on my mind. Is just like Pat Summitt, what she did at Tennessee, and what Gino Auriemma. I tell you what, he's still coming out with the way he thinks about sports, not just women's sports, not just about his team, but the way he thinks about sports and just does it at an elite level with a women's team. I mean, I feel like there's an opportunity for people who are up and coming to pursue that on the women's side as well. You don't always have to go on the men's side. I know you're probably going to get more media attention on the men's side. We already kind of talked about that. You're not going to get as many eyeballs, but damn, there's if you're a good coach, you're going to do well regardless of what side of the gender you go on when it comes to sports.
I agree.
So that was one other thing I wanted to talk on, but I also wanted to touch on, just from a big picture of sports, what are some names when you think of women's sports, women's athletes? What are some names that you would say, maybe name 5, 10, whatever you can think of, that transcend the sports world? Maybe it originated in sports, but names that kind of transcend the sport in general.
Well, great question. And Venus and Serena Williams are like the first two.
Yes.
They transcend like women's sports. What they're doing as African American women, and the brand they've built, and how empowering they are to African American and minority women. I mean, maybe that's redundant. I'm not good with all that stuff, but my goodness, like they are some of the best athletes ever. Just period. I mean, they're just incredible athletes. Lisa Leslie is who I think of when I think of like WNBA players. She was well, tall, athletic, dominant, and every time you saw her in a all-star game or in any type of speaking role, she's just like smooth. You know what I mean? Like you could just tell she was put together, confident. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And I could name a bunch of WNBA players, but I don't know if they transcend the sport. Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, they jump out to me. Candace Parker, I remember watching her dunk in the dunk contest. That was really cool. What the hell is her name? Elena
Deladova. Yeah. Deladon.
Yeah. Elena Deladon. Let's see here. Other women.
So let me throw out
Phillips. Right?
Yeah.
Is that the flying squirrel?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Michelle Kwan. I grew up with a sister who figure skated like competitively. She wanted to grow up to be Michelle Kwan.
Yeah. So a couple, I got a couple more. Flojo, Jackie Joyner Kersey from back in the day. She was a track and field star.
Oh,
Probably 90s. She was probably the most marketable female of that Olympics games. I think she was big in at least two of those. Flojo was just massive back in the day.
hmm.
Um, Speaking of tennis, so and when I say transcend sports, it's not always necessarily the best players. You probably have to have a certain
No.
level of elite, play level, but you may
Yeah.
not also necessarily dominate your sport, but you kind of take it your brand or your personality to another level. I remember when Anna Kournikova and Maria Sharapova were kind of doing their thing, and they were a marketing gold mine
Dude,
for kind of everyone back in the day, and everybody still knows
everywhere.
their name. Everybody still
Yep.
knows, even though they weren't the best. Lisa Leslie, I had Mia Hamm.
Oh, of course. Yeah. When
Yeah,
we did talk about her. Yeah.
yeah. Danica Patrick is actually somebody from kind of an alternative type sport, and Ronda Rousey are two kind of, you don't think of when you think of women's sports, you don't think of NASCAR immediately. You don't think of combat sports, but I think those are two names as well. Lindsey Vaughn. Um, I also had Carrie Walsh and Misty May Trainer. You remember who they are?
Oh, yeah. The beach volleyball players.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they dominate.
I watched a lot of beach volleyball. I like volleyball. I like playing volleyball,
Yep.
and those two were like, uh, they were so in sync. They knew where the other one was going before they made the move. I loved
Yeah.
watching them.
One of the best teams out there, I would say. But so I think that pretty much wraps up what I had to say, minus one thing. The one sport that was kind of a flash in the pan, I remember daily. It was always kind of like TRL when I got home from high school, junior high, or whatever. But for a short period of time on MTV, they had this roller derby show. And I don't remember.
Yes, dude, I was gonna bring this up too.
Okay, go ahead.
I I remember coming home from school and it was on Spike, which I think became Paramount Network, whatever. And they had professional roller derby. I had
Yeah.
never heard of or seen such a thing in all my life. I don't think they do that locally where I grow up, or if they do, I want to know where.
Yeah. Actually, here in Indiana, they have roller derby teams, and they do like competitions and stuff throughout the Midwest.
No
Um,
shit.
yeah, so you can find it. I bet Wisconsin has some roller derby stuff going on. But that's also one of those sports that is just, you know what? That's a female sport that's dominated by females, and good on you for it.
True. Yeah. What is not entertaining about that?
I don't know. You got
Yeah.
speed, you got combat, you got scoring, you got
I was
you got
gonna say,
everything you could
dude,
want out of a sport.
why can't we make roller derby a high school sport? You
Oh,
know what I
that'd be
mean?
awesome. Yeah.
Get the gals started young. Oh my god. Football? I don't know if football could compete if you had to choose between going on a Friday night in the freezing cold of Wisconsin weather in November and watching two slapdick football teams blow one or the other out, or going to roller derby inside
Yeah.
where it's warm, constant action. Dude,
Heck yeah.
I'm a football guy, but I'm just saying, like, I think the gym would be, or the town would be pretty divided.
I agree.
That's so funny you brought that up. Bring back, let's grow roller derby. And just saying, I'm a little jealous. We can make that a men's sport too.
And if you're listening to this and you don't traditionally watch a whole lot of women's sports, give it a shot. You may like it. Who knows?
Yeah, I think we should look into, there's a lot of daughters in this group, or with daddies in this group and moms. We should maybe like get together for a WNBA game or something.
Oh, for sure.
I think maybe the first Iron Ostrich Network meetup. Maybe we go to a WNBA game. I heard tickets are cheap. Not being mean, but they are relatively cheap. I think we
Family
could get
friendly. Family friendly price.
super. I think we should do it.
All right.
Is that about do it or what?
I believe so. So we've got the names of the folks who are hosting next week. We've got next week we've got Tyler Allen, super producer Tyler Allen, and our first ever recurring host, Trashman Ronnie. And
Oh, this is gonna be good.
yeah, it'll be good. As far as topic goes, let's see. They will be discussing something, and I think it's going to be a surprise this time. We're not going to announce it on this show, and we will send that out through our social media what they will be discussing, and we'll see. But whose show is it? Wrapping up. Have a good night.
See you.